Hey all, you're watching our hands-on review of the Panasonic Eulga P08D. Now, this isn't a tablet that I was originally planning on picking up, but it popped up into my Amazon recommended feed. I clicked on it and thought, why not? Now, there are a few reasons. The first, because the tablet is now priced at under $70, which makes it very affordable. It's a 10.1-inch Android tablet. The second, because the tablet was originally intended for the Japanese demographic. In fact, it was never meant to be released here in the States. It's branded by Docomo, which is a carrier in Japan. Packaging here is very simple. You can see some of the Japanese characters. It's basically imported, and all of these units are new or refurbished at the moment. So I guess they, for some reason, managed to get hold of a lot of these stocks, and now they're trying to get rid of them. We'll see how well it performs here in 2018. The tablet isn't exactly new to the market. It's been released for a few years. In fact, it runs on Android version Ice Cream Sandwich, I believe. So it's definitely a little outdated in terms of specs, but one of the most interesting specs, like most Japanese phones and tablets, is it's completely waterproof, which makes it really durable if you are using it in the field. And I've actually never seen a tablet that's waterproof. I've seen phones, but this is one of the reasons why, again, I was drawn to this particular unit at such a low price. So here we have a number of instruction manuals and warranty guides, but they're all printed in Japanese, it seems like. There is the manual that is showing off all the features in Japanese. As part of the $70, you also get an included stand, and it's using just simply micro USB, although it has a very interesting shape that folds up rather conveniently. So taking a look at the stand first, it's made out of plastic. It's a kind of quirky accessory to include with a tablet, but you can dock it next to your bed or onto a living room, and the tablet will act as a display for time, date, as an alarm clock, I guess, when it's being docked and being charged. It uses 2 contact pins to charge, and then you can simply plug in a micro USB cable on the back. It stands pretty well, and it is nicely presented, even though it is made entirely out of plastic. One thing I do wish is that the dock would bring some additional functionality, such as an HDMI port or a USB port, but unfortunately it's missing here. The tablet itself does not have an HDMI port on its body, so that is one omission that I'm not a huge fan of. Alright, so let's take a quick look at the design of the tablet first. It has a fairly traditional look. We have a WVGA display, so it's roughly 720p, not the sharpest in the world, but it does have fairly good viewing angles. It's made out of LCD IPS. The front also features a 2-megapixel camera for video chatting, along with LED lights. Along the edges here, you actually have stereo speakers, one on the left, one on the right. So sound quality should also be one of the highlights here. Along this particular edge, you can tell that it's not the thinnest tablet. It's not bad either. I would say it's roughly 9 to 10 millimeters thick. On the other side, we have flaps that cover up all the ports for charging micro USB, and there's also a SIM card tray along with a micro SD card slot for expanding the built-in memory. There's 16 or 32 gigs depending on the version that you pick up, and it takes a SIM card if you want to use LTE data with the unit. Since it's a waterproof tablet, you do have to cover these up. However, the headphone port, which is standard 3.5 mils, is not covered up. So the circuit has probably been coated in a layer of water resistance material to make this magic happen. On the very top, you have access to a volume rocker and a power switch. It's a little bit hard to reach using just one hand, but overall it's fairly tactile and responsive. There's also a lanyard strap. Alright, so on the back, one of the things that you can notice is that Panasonic did not opt for a rear-facing camera, which isn't a big deal in my opinion, just because taking serious images with tablets has never been really a point of focus. We would use our phones instead. We do have these very interesting dimples that makes the tablet easier to grip and hold, kind of like a gaming console. There is the Eulga logo, and down below here it says Made in Japan. One thing that comes to mind is really how long it's been since we've seen a flagship level tablet, a dedicated tablet, not a convertible, not a Chromebook, but it seems like as our smartphones have been getting bigger and bigger, there's been a dwindling, at least, need for manufacturers to create powerful, exciting new tablets. In terms of internal specifications, we do have access to the typical Wi-Fi. There's Bluetooth. It does have a TI, or a Texas Instruments OMAP processor clocked at 1.2 gigahertz. I believe it's a dual-core chipset, and it's coupled with just 1 gig of RAM inside. So in terms of internals, it definitely is no longer very powerful. Back when Android tablets were first getting popular a few years back, these were again fairly cutting edge specs. The most surprising thing, however, is it still seems to run actually pretty well as far as general navigation is concerned, and for quick web browsing and watching YouTube videos, it still performed those tasks, it seems like, fairly quickly. And looking back, there really have been quite a lot of changes to Android through the years. For one, there is no drag down notification tray, so all of our notifications on the bottom right hand corner, they'll pop up like this whenever we tap on it. Actually, on a tablet, it feels like it's similar to a desktop, like a Windows machine, and it's actually very convenient and easy to tap on. In terms of battery life, it's actually still very good. The tablet shipped with roughly a 6,000 milliamp hour pack that could easily last you about, let's say, 3 to 3.5 days before you needed to recharge it again. Overall, it's also, again, quite comfortable to hold, and again, the display offers fairly generous viewing angles with pretty punchy colors, although it doesn't get quite as bright as I would have liked to see. So something they have to point out is not all of the names and apps have been completely translated to English. Even though we've set the language options to English, you can still see how some of these widgets are specifically designed to work in Japan. Obviously, you can just delete these, you can uninstall the apps that you don't want to use, and our app tray is in this icon on the side, along with a few shortcuts that have been placed on here by default that will always remain regardless of what page we're on. That takes us to the gallery, to the web-based browser, to an email client, and our contacts. So this is, again, very unorthodox. We do still have on-screen controls for going back home, as well as a multitasking tray. So we can really tell how far Android has evolved, but there was a simplicity, and on a tablet, actually some of these ergonomics make a lot of sense. It resembles a computer more than a smartphone operating system. All right, so going into the main drawer, you can see our apps have been separated by different tabs, such as recently used apps, Docomo services, basic functions, entertainment, tools and utilities, settings, and Google-specific apps. We do have access to the full suite of services, such as Play Store, Gmail, as well as Google Maps, Google Earth, things like that. Since this is a Japanese tablet and not a Chinese tablet, where in mainland China Google services are blocked, the benefit here is we still have access to most of these stock services, even if they're a little bit hidden behind the software here. One interesting thing is under settings, you'll see an app that's called Home Switcher. Tapping on this actually allows you to launch into the regular stock kind of Android experience. As you can see here, this is very much a stock Android 4.0 ice cream sandwich now that we've tapped and launched into it. There's even a Google search key and a voice search command on the very top corner, and I can also access all my applications just by tapping there. So there's actually two different skins or launchers that you have the ability to switch back and forth between, and I can default a home press to a specific launcher if I like it more than the other. So for instance, I'm going to stick with the regular Google launcher, and you can see how there have been, again, a few changes. One thing though that is consistent is on the notification tray. What this does is you can turn on kind of this surround sound effect. It's very similar to Dolby Atmos, what we have now on current generation Android phones and tablets, and I can select the type of source I'm listening to, whether it's just music or a movie, and I can change profiles like adjust the bass, turn it higher, and change things such as, let's say, the overall volume. The keyboard, it still is very comfortable to use on a large multi-touch enabled display. We can also tap on this icon that pops up that gives us a few other built-in keyboard. This is built by Panasonic, and I can write in kanji characters. I can also write Chinese characters as well as English. So I can close this and do a quick demonstration. For instance, if I tap and write OS reviews, you can see I can type it out one letter at a time, and it's actually fairly accurate in terms of recognizing what I want to look at, and I can tap to enter the address. So again, this is using the standard WebKit-based browser, which I haven't used in a long time because, of course, more modern builds of Android now come with Chrome built right on in. Obviously, you can still download Chrome if you want to from the Play Store, but you can see that this is what the standard browser looked like back in the day. It actually still works quite well, and you can open up multiple tabs, it seems like, without too many problems. One of the more surprising elements, again, like I said, is it seems like everything is still fairly snappy even after opening up lots of these programs. You would think that with only 1 gig of RAM, it's not very capable. Surprisingly, for the most part, it actually still remains quite smooth when you're transitioning back and forth between open programs. So it seems like that Panasonic have done a good job of RAM management. Alright, so pausing the track there, although it doesn't have that much bass, it's very similar to other tablets and phones in that regard. Sound quality is actually really good just because it packs a lot of volume. It has good clarity in terms of mids and highs, and again, there's good separation as well. Since this is a pretty wide tablet, as you're holding it, you get a fairly immersive audio experience as you're watching movies and listening to music. For complex sites like the New York Times, it just takes a few seconds longer for the page to completely render compared to a modern phone or tablet, but overall it's not a bad experience at all. You can pinch and zoom, text will automatically reflow, and as long as you are willing to wait again for a few seconds longer once everything is fully loaded, it really isn't a bad web browsing experience at all. Still very good, especially since I think the display does a good job of showing off the content. You can see here the accelerometer also works without too many issues. Just wait for a split second longer than on, let's say, the latest and newest. A quick look at the camera or webcam. It's going to flash green to tell you that it's currently in use, and one of the best attributes is really how well it performs under low light environments. Right now the light in this room is very dim, just so that we can see the screen a little bit more easily, but it's capturing light as if it was in a fully lit environment, and it's a lot brighter looking than it is in reality. So that's one of the benefits. Even if it doesn't give you the most, let's say, detailed shot, and it's a little bit fuzzy in terms of the overall output, at least for things like Skype or WeChat, it does a good job of illuminating your face. On-air kind of television service we saw with the kooky looking antenna band on the side here, but again, it doesn't really work here in the US. It's going to try to scan for channels, but it won't be able to find that. So that isn't a option that we can really access, at least if you live in North America at the moment. We do in fact have Polaris Office, which allows us to quickly view, edit, and create new Word, Excel, PowerPoint documents on the go. There's a YouTube client built on in, of course, and under settings we can confirm that indeed the tablet is running on Android version 4.0, and if we tap on About Tablet, we'll be able to see this over here. Other neat additions from Panasonic include lots of these custom, let's say, wallpapers and some widgets as well. So if we tap on wallpapers, for instance, we'll see a lot of these geared more for Japanese demographic at the time, such as this image of the cherry blossoms at some of their beaches, and again, different types of designs as well as streets in Japan. And here's a cutting board, penguins, fruit, and kind of candy. The last app I'll discuss in this video is Panasonic's customized photo album app. It looks very similar to stock Android until you drag and hold on an image, and from here you can flick it up, down, left, or right to have access to 4 quick launch shortcuts. For instance, I can flick it up to send it to Gmail, I can flick it down to send it to other tablets that have a very similar operating system, I can flick it over to the left to delete it. So for instance, flicking it up, it will try to send it to Gmail, and it tells me to add a Gmail account. Similarly, I can tap and hold, delete, and that will confirm if I want to delete this image. So it's a very slick interface that actually works quite well. Again, this is what the dock looks like, so you can watch movies, stream YouTube, browse the web without having to hold up the tablet. So that's the Panasonic Eulga P08 Android tablet here in 2018. At $70 brand new, is it something that I would still pick up? I would say it depends. It's definitely not a powerful tablet. At this price though, it's competing with other low-end hardware such as a Amazon Fire tablet. And a Fire tablet at $60-70 will also have probably a smaller 7-inch, 8-inch display. So the larger display here makes more sense if you're watching YouTube or browsing the web. With that being said, I wouldn't use this exclusively to run, a lot of heavy games such as Asphalt 8 or heavy productivity tools. Most of them will still work, but you have to wait for just a few seconds longer, and again, does have limited RAM, so occasionally apps can still crash if you try to open up too many at once. So it's no longer the most stable tablet. However, it does have a very unique design, and the fact that it is waterproof still remains an interesting feature that we don't really see in tablets even here in 2018 with newer models. So there are certainly reasons to pick it up, and it still presents itself as a decent value all these years later. So you can check out more details about this in the links down below, but for now this has been our hands-on review. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been the Panasonic Eulga P08 Live Android tablet.